The MAGA-driven Congress is close to cutting much-needed programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP. Ohio Congresswoman Shontel Brown delivered an emotional plea against these proposed cuts, sharing how the program helped her family during challenging times in her childhood.
As I think about this from a personal place, my mother was on food assistance when I was in school. And I think about when I grew up as a child with epilepsy, petit mal seizures, having to rely on food assistance. To this day, I hate cold cuts because I had so many bologna sandwiches growing up because that's all we could afford. Bologna sandwiches, pancakes for dinner, which I thought was a treat, but later learned that's all we could afford for dinner because we depended on food stamps. I had epilepsy, seizures. My mother was afraid to go to work because she never knew when her daughter could have a seizure. She did not drive. She was on public transportation. That was the assistance that she needed to help us survive. To help us survive. She didn't wake up wanting to be on food stamps. She didn't wake up wanting to have a daughter who had unpredictable medical conditions that prevented her from keeping a regular job. But thank God for those food stamps. Thank God for those pancakes for dinner. Thank God for those syrup sandwiches. Thank God for those toasted cheese sandwiches that we got because we received the cheese to make toasted cheese sandwiches that I grew up on because of food assistance. And now you want to take things like that away from people who need them, who depend on them, who are just trying to get by because of systemic, structural, institutional barriers that have put many people in impoverished conditions that they did not decide to be a part of, but because of the systems that we are still utilizing to oppress people are in place when we could be giving them a helping hand. But instead, we want to take money from poor people so we can give it to rich people. Make that make sense. Make it make sense. People depend on this money. Not so they can get rich, not so they can invest it, not so they can get a jet, not so they can get a yacht, so they can have a meal, so they can eat. But we want to take it away from poor people and give it to rich people. Let it sink in. That's what we're doing. We're talking about food, poor people, and hunger.
The House committee voted along party lines to advance legislation to the House Budget Committee that would cut up to $300 billion from SNAP to help fund an upcoming tax and domestic policy bill. Dr. Dibinga, an impassioned speech certainly made a lot of sense. I mean, it is the system that's in place that's creating people who can't afford food in the first place.
You know, the inequality is built into this country. You know, it's built into this country. Anything that we've fought for in this country, whether it's child labor laws, women being able to have the right to be in the workplace. I mean, inequality has been built into this country from the beginning. And there are too many people who have a vested interest in keeping it that way. They don't want to compete. So they want, families like how she was talking about, mother afraid to go to work because of her child potentially having a seizure. They want family, mothers not going to work because they have to raise kids. They want to make sure that people who may have various disabilities can get the services that they need. Like they have a vested interest in keeping people down. It is evil, it's savage, it's barbaric. And the sooner people understand this and rally around people like Reverend Barber and the like, we can start to make some change in this society and in this country. But so many people are conditioned to believe that they're just supposed to suffer, that a little more suffering they feel like is not going to hurt them. We need a larger uprising. We need more than the weekend demonstrations that are happening across the country to make people understand this, because we should have enough knowledge of history to not have to hit rock bottom once again before people decide to rise up, because by that time it may be too late, as this man continues to consolidate his power. And that's all he's doing right now, is consolidating his power, biding his time right now so that they can make the larger moves with these tax cuts and other things that are going to permanently cripple too many Americans and basically destroy this country for years to come.
Representative Shannon, listen, party lines, as expected. This is why we are here. What's your take on this, and what could potentially happen? Do you think that people will eventually come around in this?
I'm hoping that this bill, although it's a budget, so, in the state of Georgia, the one duty you have as a House member or a senator is to pass a budget. It's like that's the only thing that your actual job is. If you don't do anything else, you do have to pass a budget. At the congressional level, I'm not sure of all of the things that they are required to, by law, to do within their duty. But I'm bringing that up because I'm really hoping that this budget bill does not get cloture in the Senate. I'm hoping that it does not see the light of day in the Senate. And because it's just going to be so disastrous. The SNAP cuts, what I can tell you is that, it really is just taking food out of the mouths of people who literally this is their last leg of being able to sustain themselves. And the really terrible thing about it is that, Republicans always talk about entitlements, which is the wrong thing to be calling these programs, but they make it seem like we spend so much money on social safety nets in this country, and we don't. More of our money is given to fund the military and tax cuts, which is what the president's new budget is really. The people who are winning in this are the wealthy getting tax cuts, and then more money on defense spending. And I really think that it's very short-sighted. They also don't realize how this can be an issue of national security. I think that decisions like this will be the reasons, not the only reason, but it'll be the reasons why we won't win, for example, like this tariff war that Trump is doing with China, because a lot of the countries that you're going up against have a better social safety net. So if something happens to their country, their folks can go a lot longer. They can hold out a lot longer as it results when you get into things like trade wars and things like this, because they have consistent social safety nets. Here in America, well, you have the freedom to be homeless if you lose your job. You have freedom to die from lack of access to health care if you lose your job. And you have the freedom to, go hungry if, SNAP gets cut. And so it's like the purpose of tax dollars is supposed to be money that is being put into a pot that will add to the betterment of the collective of society. That's the purpose of tax dollars. Giving our tax dollars to to rich people so that they can have tax cuts and overspending on military, that is just not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And, pretty soon the bill is going to come due.
You know what, Dr. Malveaux, what I've been seeing a lot of, and this has happened before, but it resonates more now, is Black women especially giving impassioned speech about these things that matter to them to try to get people to see the side of humanity that they just don't understand. When you take cheese from someone, it sounds so basic, but it translates into somebody having a life. And I think that that's been very important. Even if the needle isn't moved, I think it's very important to hear these stories, just like we heard Shontel Brown.
Well, Shontel Brown puts a face on it. My mom was a social worker. I remember back in the day, people that she brought home because they couldn't get their food stamps, now called SNAP, and all kinds of excuses being made as to why people could not get their food stamps. But then the small picture is drilling down and putting faces on this misery. And that's what it is, it's misery. And when I think about Malcolm X's mother, because I was there, and how she had to hustle after her husband was killed, probably lynched, and they said he committed suicide on the railroad track, that's another story. But looking at how she scrambled to try to feed her children and then was institutionalized because they said she could not feed her children because they took away her food assistance. But let's take it back a step, guys, and talk a little bit about who benefits from low-wage workers. See, our country is subsidizing the workers who work in the big box stores and are making the minimum wage. In many states, it's less than $8 an hour. In some states, in the United States, a bit more. But guess what's happening? So we're subsidizing oppression. When we say you can get food stamps because you don't make enough money, how come you don't make enough money? Because people are not paying. So we can look at this in terms of SNAP, and I abhor what they've done, and I'm hoping that at least 3 or 4 Republicans grow a pair, and that the Senate also does some closure. But it's not just that. It's a bigger picture, how we're allowing workers to be exploited and how we, all of us collectively, are benefiting from that exploitation. It is a frightening situation, and there are very few. There are people in city to city and state to state who are standing up, but we need folks to stand up far more nationally and globally and say it is not okay to exploit people. Simply is not okay to exploit people. So low wages are essentially exploitation, and cutting SNAP subsidizes, let me call one name out, somebody will come get me, for Walmart, Best Buy, they have these low wage workers. These are punching above their weight, but they're not getting their money. So we are subsidizing oppression. The United States of America is subsidizing oppression.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.